Hey, Joan,
Yes.
I could bring up the township's website on my laptop with no problem. So it has to be something about my remote connection. So I'm
Yeah.
investigating that.
And if you give me all that information, I can give that to our website manager and we can get that on there.
Okay, I'm working on the information for the survey to start, on Friday. So I'm working on the background information. I was just going to do a little blurb about what is a comprehensive plan and why is the township updating their comprehensive plan. And then obviously the survey link. And then I assume you might want a bullet point also about the community workshop in that same location.
Yes, that would be good.
Okay. I had written something really short for the postcard that I know got edited down, but maybe I'll start with that because it's basically 2 bullet points, one for the survey, one for the community workshop, and then it's just a sentence or two about what is a comp plan. That might be particularly good for Facebook because you don't have a lot of room there.
Right.
So. Hey, Joan, do you have it set up so you can share, so I can share my screen eventually?
I do. And I think that's Barry's screen on there now.
Oh, okay.
Joan, let me ask, I know that we're not in the meeting yet, but I have to come by for a building permit. Are you guys there routinely or is it still by appointment only?
Well, we're here and the appointments are more for Jeff Vogels if you need to speak with him.
Okay.
If you just want to pick up, okay, that's fine. You could just drop that off. You could either put it in a box or knock on a door and we can take it from you.
Okay. All right. I'll do that. Normal hours?
Yes.
Cool.
Barry, do you mean to be sharing your screen?
Can you see mine now?
No. Let me change something here.
We've got Barry's screen up and
I have a message that says you are sharing.
It's,
that-
You can either choose, I can either choose a big picture of myself or like a
I'm
small
see-
picture with notes. I can do whatever I want or whatever is convenient for you, but I shouldn't interfere with anyone else's activities.
well, you are actually presenting to the meeting.
Well,
So
I can change that. So just Janine can present. If just give me a second.
up in the top on view options, you can select between Janine and Barry currently. So I'm looking at Janine's screen, which is the Franklin Comp Plan agenda, and Barry's is different.
Ah, so Joan can pick who is shared to the group. Got it.
So is that Janine's screen now?
Yes, that is true. But I'm also going to do, yeah.
I was going for a virtual background and it didn't work. They're not joking when they say you need a green background.
I know I was looking into those for my grandchildren for school.
Mason, can you see my screen now?
Yep, it looks good.
Okay. And you can see it too, Joan?
Yes.
Okay, good. Hey, Nan. Maybe she walked away.
Okay, that's great.
Should we get started, Joan, or should we wait a few more minutes?
I was trying to see where Nan went. Wait for her to come back on.
Okay.
I don't know where she went.
How many people do we have total? Just 8?
Yes,
Okay.
but it says 11 or here we go. Here's 2 more. Mary and Nan. Here's Kathy. Well, that
There's
was-
Nan. Hey, Nan.
Right, I'm here.
Okay. And Mary's here, so
Barry's here. Is that it so far?
no, there's
Oh.
10 of us on.
Oh, there are, okay. So we're ready to start?
You are.
Okay, yes, I am. Sorry, I just got off the tractor. Yeah, so tonight, Janine's gonna pretty much run the meeting. What we want to do is that we're gonna do a dry run of our of the community meeting that we're gonna have in 2 weeks. And so what I'm gonna ask you guys to do is to not be task force members, but to be members of the public, be Franklinites, and act like you are at our meeting. At the end of the meeting, Kathy is going to address one of the questions in the questionnaire that she came up with a good idea. And that's going to be it for tonight. So I'll turn it over to Janine.
Okay, everybody, hello. How are you guys doing? Hope everybody's well. So basically what we're going to be doing, as Nan said, is we're going to be doing this exercise. If you look at your agenda, which I have on the screen, where we're going to be thinking about the township and considering for the comprehensive plan, the major subjects that should be the focus of the plan. And how we're going to do that is we're going to think about the township in terms of what you all like currently about your township, meaning what are the strong points and what things should be maintained, retained, preserved, what things that are pretty good about your township and you like, but they could be bettered or tweaked a little bit to really get them to that first category of items that should be kept and preserved. And then what items are challenges that really need to be improved or maybe even transformed in a more dramatic case to meet the needs of the township and to also meet your township vision. When we talk about these subjects, what we're going to be looking at, these 3 items, what we're going to be looking at is out of these items, hopefully will emerge eventually township vision and planning goals, and also the major subjects the plan will cover, and then lead into recommendations for the plan. So that's the context of this exercise. You all, a couple meetings ago, had been given existing conditions, very draft mapping. And before the exercise starts, I'm going to just bring up a couple of those maps. Some of them have been somewhat revised for you all to look at to get a feel for the township. Can you all see the existing land use map now on the screen? Yes, okay. So this is your draft, this is your existing land use map now, and I'm going to scroll down. Unfortunately, my screen isn't big enough to show the whole map at once, so I'm going to do a little bit of scrolling. But in general terms, when you're looking at the map, colors that are in the red pink category are your more intense colors, meaning commercial or mixed use of commercial and residential. Colors that are in the brown, yellow, orange category are different types of housing. The blue category is institutional uses, meaning things like churches and schools. And you can see there right here in the center of the township, capturing the church and the school. When you get into the greens, you start to look at more open types of land, whether it be land that's preserved through the state, through the park, or land that has been preserved through residential developments, like this bit of open space here. And then when you get into this other shade of sort of a khaki green, you get into ag lands that are currently functioning as agricultural lands. And then this lighter green are types of recreation, whether it be a township type of recreation in this case, or a private type of recreation. So just to give you a general feel for how the existing land use works, all in all, when you look at this map, there's really only a couple lots that aren't developed. And being this lot up here in the northwest corner, this lot is currently under development. And then if you scroll down, there's a lot here that's open, and there's like 1 or 2 lots right here that are open. But for the most part, all the land is spoken for in one way or another. So now I'm just going to show you one of the natural resource maps, and I chose biotic resources, which includes biodiversity corridors, your riparian buffer, which is a buffer that's on either side of your streams to try to preserve the stream, your hydric soils, which
Janine, hold on 1 second. I just got a text from Paul Overton. Joan, he needs to be admitted into the meeting.
Okay, got him.
Thank you.
Your hydric soils, which are wet soils. Then this color is lands where there's still woodlands. This pattern is, there's something called the Pennsylvania Natural Diversity Index, and that shows where there's habitats of different species that are sensitive and to be protected. And then this color shows where you have wetlands. So this is just a sample map showing that you do have quite a bit. When you consider the land area of the township, there are quite a few natural resources. And again, this is just one of the natural resources maps.
Janine, who makes those into, who designates those areas? Do they do a botanical study, or what? How did they find them?
Well, the Pennsylvania Natural Diversity Inventory site is something produced by the state of Pennsylvania.
Okay.
And they do go out and they do modeling, and then in some cases they do surveying.
Okay.
And that inventory is updated so many years. Things like the hydric soils, the county years ago, and it's updated periodically, was one of the counties in the state that had a soil survey done.
Okay,
And so based on that soil survey, GIS coverages were
Right.
created for these
okay,
different types of soils.
okay, thanks.
So that's, that's where it comes from, generally from these bigger studies that were done. Then 2 more maps quickly. You saw this map when we reviewed chapter 2 text, but this just gives you a context for the regional area around Franklin and showing, these major park and open space assets right around the township and coming into the township. And then just showing how there's a lot of community facilities all around the township, but you really don't see, any in the township, even the fire station in London, Britain, one in New London. Then you have in West Grove, you have a library, police stations elsewhere, libraries elsewhere. And to supplement that map, we'll just take a look at the community facilities specifically. And this is looking at water and sewer as well. Let me scroll down. So this brownie khaki color is wastewater treatment. And I'm not talking about on-lot treatment. I'm talking about community treatment or public treatment of wastewater. And then this hatch pattern shows where there's public water. And then you see other, other types of icons that symbolize other types of community facilities. But you can see in the township, there's a public water area here, a public water area here, one here and here. But really the public sewer systems are outside the township. And then it's interesting because then when you scroll up and you look at the area north of the township, you start to see, I think this gives really good context to show that you all and London, Britain, and even moving down to Elk in this area really still have a pretty rural feel. And if nothing else proves it, it's because you simply don't have these major types of infrastructure and community facilities. So then we're going to move on to looking at this workshop.
I'm going to ask a question real quick, if that's okay.
Yeah.
We started doing more modeling right now. Like, is this how you're going to do it? Or is that later?
Well, Nan and I would have actually started saying, what is a comprehensive plan? And why are you sitting here tonight? I didn't do that for you guys. We would have started with she would have introduced the project and introduced me, and she would have given you a little background, and then I would have said, what's a comprehensive plan and why you're sitting here tonight? And then we would start right into this, into the exercise. The planners that are going to be in the breakout groups would have the maps that I gave you. I just did that for your purposes, to provide context, for you all, but the planners and the breakout groups will be doing that.
So I guess I'm asking,
Yeah.
like, we know these maps and you've shown them before, so this wouldn't actually be part of the actual meeting, correct?
Well, it will be part of the meeting, but it'll be part of the breakout groups.
Couched within a
So
specific.
you guys are effectively your own breakout group right now. So if you let me run through it quickly, you'll see where you fit in. There's going to be 4 breakout groups and you're a breakout group. So I ran through those maps just like another planner who did the breakout group would be running through the maps. It wouldn't necessarily happen in this order because we would have already said, what is a comprehensive plan? I didn't bother doing that for you guys.
Yeah, Janine, can we just run through that real quick so we can see it? Because I'm with Barry. I was a little confused where we were jumping in here. So, I mean, you don't have to read through it. So we'll do the agenda when people sign on. What is a comprehensive plan? And then scroll down, we'll have the plan process and community participation, correct? Right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so you're going to explain all of this to the people that are participating. So,
Right. In
all
brief.
right.
Yes.
In brief, right. And so the maps that you just showed us are once we get into the breakout rooms.
Yes.
Are you going to show the maps all together like that? Or are you going to show it as we go through the individual topics?
The planner who's in the breakout group can feel the group and figure out what they think is best to do.
And
I'm
they're
gonna
gonna do that by
there.
polling them about what they like about the township and that sort of thing?
Yeah,
Okay,
they're gonna, the planner who's running the particular breakout group, I'm gonna let them determine if they're gonna show the maps right out the, if they have a talkative group, they might not have to show the maps, but if they don't have a talkative group, they might
okay,
have to show the maps to get them started, so I'm gonna leave that up to them.
okay, but
So basically what
I still think it would be useful for us because pretend that we are actually the public, so we see what exactly, is going. So you're assuming things that you wouldn't know. So I'd be more interested to see what the process is gonna be. As all of us being in this breakout group. Does that make sense? Do others agree with that? I mean, I think that's what Barry was kind of saying too.
Right, well, basically, I was starting right into the exercise. I skipped all of page 1. So I was starting
And
right
this is
into the
all page 1
exercise.
here, all right? But
Yeah.
so when does
As
it
if
come
you're
in?
already in a
when-
breakout group.
Okay, so when does it come in as I get to talk about what I like about Franklin Township and what I want to enhance and that sort of thing? When does that happen?
That was gonna happen right
Was
after I talked about the maps, yeah. I'm treating you guys like a breakout group, and I'm not going through all of this stuff for you, which we would actually go through at the meeting, because I didn't think you wanted to spend that much time going through all this other information. So as you said in the startup to this meeting, you guys are gonna be the public, and you're gonna be one of the groups right now.
Right, but we skipped a whole lot of stuff that they would have seen, and so that's why I'm kind of
Right.
confused. I mean, so I'd
If
still
you
like
want
to
me to start
back.
over what is a comprehensive
Well,
plan?
no, I mean, we got through that. I think we understand that. But the exercise, we're going to go into smaller breakout groups. But again, I think that maybe we should go through the exercise of saying what we want to enhance about Franklin Township, what we like
Right.
about it.
Well, we were just about to start that. I
Okay,
just went through the maps and we were just about to get to that. That's why I brought up this next slide.
okay. I guess going right to the maps confused me. Okay, I get it now. Is everybody else on board? Or I'm a slow learner. Sorry, I've had a lot.
Yeah, I was just giving you context for what we were doing.
Janine, I just want to say that there's an error in the first map that you put up. So we can talk about that later and fix it if
Yeah,
you'd like.
and so why don't you write that down, Joe? That's a good idea. All of us, when we see mistakes or we want to make comments, let's make the comments at the end. Let's get through the whole exercise and then we can go back and see how we can, make it better. So we just keep going. Okay.
And you can always email those comments too if we run out of time.
Well, hopefully we won't. I think that we'll move right along. So,
Okay, so now we're officially in the breakout group exercise. So I'm going to step out of our breakout group for a second and just let you guys all know what is going to happen. And this is not something I'm going to say necessarily. I'm saying this to you. What is going to happen is we are going to have 4 different planners from my office run breakout groups. The township's Zoom account has the ability to do through 3 breakout groups, and then the main Zoom room will be the 4th breakout group. So we will just divide people equally. We will have a support staff person from our office who will be running the Zoom meeting, and she will be helping divide people equally. We're all going to be talking about the same topics and same questions, so there's no reason why somebody would rush one room and not the other. And each planner will lead the group through a discussion that I'm about to do. And we do have the workshop ground rules, as you're seeing, to be respectful of other people, etc. So the 4 topics or the 5 topics that have been chosen are the environment and historic resources, land use, ag as an industry, housing and community character, agricultural and open space land protection, infrastructure being roads, parks, trails, and then Kimball's Village as a destination. So moving directly into the exercise, we are going to start with the environment and historic resources. So what we're looking for is based on those maps that I showed you and based on what you know about your township, we're looking for you to talk about and give a couple bullet points about these different items. Natural resources includes these items. Then we're looking at sustainability and climate change because somebody brought that up at our meeting as being important to the township going forward. And then we're looking at historic buildings, including adaptively reusing historic buildings for new uses in order to have the buildings continue to be economic viable, and also new development near historic resources. And this will probably mainly pertain to the village. So we are looking to brainstorm what are features you like about the environment and historic resources in the township that you would like to keep for the future. And then what are resources, what are the environment and historic resource items that you think could be enhanced and how? And then what are environmental and historic resource items that you think could be improved in the township? And I'll just give you an example. You could say we have a lot of beautiful historic resources, but our zoning does not allow enough of different uses for those resources. So people have a hard time preserving them because they aren't economically viable. That would be an example of something you could say that's good, but it needs to be enhanced. So let's start with items.
Scroll back, yeah, scroll back up to the,
Yeah, the topic, yeah.
form is going to lose. I don't know what you're talking about, but now that you've got it there, the topics, I can see it. Thank you.
Sure. And I'm going to switch to a Word document so I can type things if you guys want me to type things for different ideas. So in Franklin Township, you have a lot of good environmental assets, obviously, because we just saw that map. You do have a lot of historic resources also, and your HARB could certainly be, testify to that. Are these features that you think should be retained going forward in the future, or would you prefer all those features are developed? Would you prefer historic buildings are torn down? These are the sorts of things that, we should get input on for what's important to you about historic resources and the environment.
So my first question is, how do people get your attention other than interrupting you like I'm rudely doing? And I apologize for that. Because if I try the raise hand or lower hand thing, it doesn't seem to register. How are we going to ask you when we can say something?
I think people can just speak. I think that would be fine. And the planner would be responsible to talk if people are speaking over one another to control that. But for the most part in Zoom meetings, I haven't had a problem with people, people just speaking.
Or if people are shy, you could raise your hand and then
You could raise your hand.
you would recognize the person. I don't know how to do it like Barry knows how to do the thumbs up. I don't know how to do that, but I know how to raise my hand.
It's under
There's
reaction.
also a
Or
raising
people could just physically raise their hands. I mean,
Right. And
Yeah,
you
they-
might say that if you want to say something, because people might be shy and don't want to because some people may not be, including me, that comfortable with Zoom, and that sort of thing.
okay. We can certainly just tell them everybody's comfortable with physically raising their hand. So that's better than using the controls on Zoom, I think.
The first question I would ask you, what is an example of a historic building in Franklin Township? Like specific examples of these three things that you've listed here as topics. Are there specific examples that everyone knows or that I would know in Franklin Township? Like, what do you mean by sustainability and climate change? What's an example of how we address that?
Well, an example of sustainability and climate change, and then an example of natural resources, that was one of your questions too, would be some of the resources I showed you on the map. Remember I showed you that biotic resources map where it showed woodlands and it showed a habitat area and it showed wetlands. Those would be examples of natural resources that may be important to maintain or not.
I have a question. Is there a way to put that map up on the screen as well as the topic information so we can see it rather than trying to rely on our memory?
There, can you guys see both now?
I can.
Yeah, but most people are going to know things like, oh, Croson Park or something like that. They're going to identify with this particular building or park. You know what I'm saying? No one's going to know what a biotic resource is. Yeah.
Right. Well, that's why we have wetlands, all that listed on, as an example of natural resources. People know what wetlands are.
I don't
Know
know.
what woodlands.
Yeah.
People know what woods are, at least. So is the environment something that we shouldn't maybe be talking about as one of our topics? I mean, is that what?
No, I'm just asking for a concrete example that the person who attends the meeting can connect to, so they can say something concrete and useful. That's what I'm trying to say. Like, we should give them real examples of like an achievable that the committee would then say, this is what we want in a 10-year plan, like this particular thing, like this area preserved, or
Yeah, so you'd list out Goodwin Preserve, right, or Banffshire Park, or
Well, we
these
haven't gotten
major.
there. That
But
we
that's
haven't.
like Goodwin Preserve is a natural resource park. It's not really a park that people hike. It was preserved specifically for natural resources. So when people talk about that, that might be an example within the township that people are like, oh, I know Goodwin Preserve. This is the, such and such. So I think that's what Barry's kind of getting at, right?
Okay, because we have other areas that we've broken down, like we have
Yeah.
parks, and then we have.
And we could also just, I mean,
land.
these people aren't going to be alone in this breakout group. They're going to have
Right.
someone who's guiding the conversation. So if they don't know what did you say, biotic? I forget the term you used. You can just say, well, what I mean is wetlands, and
Yeah.
I mean forests.
Yeah.
And so.
Yeah, I mean,
think that
for
might be-
example, it says here water, so it could say streams.
Right.
So streams might be important for them to preserve. It could say, most people know what floodplains are now with all the flooding we've been having. Why don't we move on to I don't know if you guys want to try for enhance or improve. Are there any issues that you have with your historic resources or your natural resources that need to be better enhanced? Like, should more money be spent on getting rid of invasive species, for example? Things like multiflora rose or poison ivy, etc. Or should more money be spent for the harb, let's say, for example? Do you need regulations to preserve historic resources? Or any of those items
I'm
pressing?
gonna act like a member of the community and say, give me an example of a historic resource that maybe we preserved in Franklin Township in the past 10 years. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm trying to do my role as talkative, don't know what you're saying.
Right.
Yeah, we
Well,
didn't.
for all these examples, we would basically need to then go and have, almost photographs of things, or
We
specific.
do our
names of
homework to be
things.
prepared. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys are asking for us to have, what is a photograph of a floodplain in Franklin Township? What is a photograph of a historic resource in Franklin Township? Because I can certainly bring up a historic resources map, but that's not going to tell them anything. Again, that's a 2D image. It's not the same as, seeing a historic resource in older building. I would say most of the building in Kimblesville, you could use it as an example.
But they're all private. Does that matter?
No.
I mean,
Doesn't matter.
the only public one we had, we tore down.
No, it doesn't matter if they're private, because a lot of the things we're going to be talking about may be private. We're talking about land uses, agriculture, that's all private. So why don't we move on to the next topic and see if we have any better luck with that in particular.
Well, before we go, about enhancing natural resources and stuff, things that what people know are trails. Paul, speak up, because I know you do trails. And that's something that would enhance our natural resources, because it allows the public to go in and see it. As far as invasive species, I don't think that there's anybody that would disagree that we want to have our natural resources overrun with multiflora rose or other things. But I don't know if they would look at that as a problem. I just think that it just seems like it's so broad. I'm kind of at a loss to tell you what I would say. Does that make sense? Anybody else have thoughts on that? Because it's an important subject, but I don't think that we focused on it enough. It's too broad as far as I'm thinking.
Dan, that's why I was trying to say, okay, let's just have a few examples on the books here to give on these topics that people in Franklin Township are like, oh yeah, I know the Kimballsville Village could be a historic resource or is a historic resource, or I know that particular park. So just like specific examples, because I'm with you. It's too broad. I look at a huge map like this and I'm like, I don't know what it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I kind of agree with that. So like what preserve would we want to choose? We have like Peacedale Preserve, which is a larger one and, and adjacent to Fair Hill.
I think you just have like some examples, like, for example, here's some things that we work on. It's to get people thinking about what the options are. It doesn't have to be it doesn't really matter what we choose. So.
Right. Well, I mean, I gave you a couple examples. I give you one for historic resources. I give you one for natural resources.
It's just we're just going to make sure that when we come and do this thing, we'll have this list out. So if someone says, I have no idea what historic building we could even preserve is, and you can say, oh, for example, we had this shed a couple of years ago, or for example, we had this, such and such, that kind of thing.
Are people going to misunderstand and thinking that we're asking them for the township to fund historical renovation?
No.
That's what I'm afraid of.
No, I'm asking, I know that, but do you think people might misunderstand, like Paul's saying?
Yeah.
No, I don't think so. That's not the example I just gave. So this is an example of your historic resources. So all these resources that you're seeing in purple and pink, and then this hatched pattern, are considered historic resources in the township. So you can see there's many of them. The yellowish color is considered a resource that's 50 years or older, that may become historic in the future, but the purple and pink are definitely resources now. And we did an inset of Kimballsville Village, and you can see this is the district with the Historic Architectural Review Board, and this is something called a National Register of Historic Places district in this purple color. So most of these resources, if not all of them, are private. So the question is, are these buildings where these lots are these buildings important for the township to have going forward in the future? And if so, how, talk about, are there ways that you can preserve these buildings? Are there additional incentives you can give these property owners through zoning, et cetera, to have more uses that they can use for their buildings? Is somebody interested in doing any kind of regulations, which most other communities have now in Chester County, to preserve their historic resources? So if a resource comes up for demolition, it's reviewed before it's demolished, and other options are considered. So you do have a lot of resources. I don't know the name of any of these resources off the top of my head.
But I get it now. And I would probably say like class 1 Kimballsville Village. Do we have a Thomas Jefferson building or something like that people need to preserve, and the planning committee needs to give a significant, dedicated focus to saying this statue or this building that birthed Franklin's child cannot be destroyed, right? And if we focus on the class 1s and we say, yeah, we kind of don't have those, then maybe that's where we need to go with this, because the big map like this, which shows so many different diverse classes and types, is going to be hard for most people to give feedback.
I think you need to show both class 1 and class 2. I don't think you should focus on class 1. First of all, you barely have any. And second of all, class 2 are going to be your local resources that you drive by every day. And if these get torn down, then the character of Franklin significantly changes, if these resources disappear. So I think it's an important question. I don't really like when maps are broken up into class 1 and class 2, because I think it gives a false sense that one may be more important than the other. All of these resources here that you see in your daily drives are what greatly contributes to your township's character right now. So the question is, what do you want to do about those? Are you okay with them all being demolished in the future? And if you are, then we'll move on. If you aren't, then we need to have a discussion under enhance or improve of how we protect these resources. You know, that's the question at hand. Are you okay with the wetlands disappearing, you know, in this other map that I brought up? And if you aren't okay with the wetlands disappearing, or the forested areas being cut away from the streams, then this is something you're going to have to consider going forward. How are you going to tackle keeping forested areas around the streams? How are you going to tackle, if you're interested in keeping some of these wooded areas, how are you going to tackle that going forward? Are they important to you, and how are you going to tackle it if they are important to you? Those are the questions at hand. And it may be that we're, you know, striking zero here because maybe historic resources and these natural resources aren't important to this group sitting here. I don't know. You know, I don't know that. Usually when we do this exercise and bring up natural and historic resources, people can't get enough, you know, of commentary in on what they want to do to preserve them or protect them. Usually have a lot of opinions on that.
For the wetlands, you know, it's not up to us, right? The state already's got them pretty well protected, but I guess it's not like we can offer to, yeah, fill them in and cut the trees down.
Well, when land development happens, wetlands do get filled in. So that's not entirely true. And sometimes as a remediation, a developer has to build a new wetland.
Hmm.
So as long as they pass certain permit tests, yes, they can be filled in if there's remediation done for them. So you're right, it is regulated under state law, but it's not a be all end all of being regulated. What you could do is in the subdivision process, you do something called a site responsive development set of regulations. So when somebody comes in, they have to look at the site first and consider all the resources that are there, and then build the development around those resources. That's an example of something, you know, you could do that further enhances these types of resources. Well, let's just move on to see if.
Yep. Could I make a comment?
Sure. Go for it.
At the last meeting, Nan suggested we look at the London Britain comprehensive plan. And I think one of the problems that we're all having is that the historic and the natural resources really don't go together. And in the London Britain plan, they separated them. So that if we're talking about natural and scenic, natural and recreational resources is what they called it. And then scenic and historic resources was another category, because how do you know, if you're talking about improvements and you're looking at natural resources, we can all focus on the wetlands, the areas that are timbered, and that's different than the way you view historic resources. Mm-hmm. So perhaps we ought to look at it the way London Britain did.
Well, we can do that when you actually do your plan. This is just to do this exercise so you don't have a million topics to go through, because you're only going to have 40 minutes.
Okay.
So we were just grouping resources together so you could talk about resources.
Well, Janine, why don't we take the historical resources and put it in the category when we talk about Campbellsville? Seeing a lot of the historical, I mean, not all of them, obviously you showed the map, but that's probably the historic resources that people might recognize on their way to the post office, because they drive through the village.
Well, that's going to be really limiting your resource protection then, and you already have a lot of those protected through the HARB. So we can do that, but just so you know.
We can use the map, the larger map as well, but maybe start Campbellsville as a nucleus and then go out. And I think that would address Jerry's comment as well. Jerry, what do you think about that? Do you think that fits better?
Yeah, that would be an improvement, I think.
And then concentrate.
Let's say now we get rid of this, forget this altogether. Okay, let's just say we don't have the historic resources here. What is your feedback about the environment? Are you going to have specific feedback about what you would like to see happen in the environment, or?
Yeah, I think looking at invasives, we're dealing with the lanternflies now.
Yeah.
And we really don't have any program to deal with what are the trees they live on? Tree of Heaven.
Right.
I mean, I've been cutting down Tree of Heaven on our property all spring. So I think that's one place where perhaps an education program would be an improvement in how we deal with invasives.
That's a good suggestion. So why don't we pick topics within the environment that people might be recognized? I mean, you can talk about the lanternflies, you can talk about planting trees in the wetlands that, you know, Paul and others did years ago, and Goodwin and other parks around. We did it also in Franklin Preserve. You know, would the community be interested in doing more programs like that? Help me, is there some other things that they might recognize as being something in the environment that would improve Franklin Township, that we could talk about specific projects? Does anybody else have suggestions?
Where is open space preservation? Is that part of environment, or where is that?
No, we have a note here saying it's going to be talked about under agricultural and open space land preservation topic.
Okay.
Maybe we should talk about the maintenance of our preserves in this section as well. Maybe people have suggestions about, there's been some comments of late about putting the trails in Franklin Preserve, I believe. I'm not familiar with the trails and that sort of thing, to bring it down into a more manageable size and make it smaller so people that live in the community can understand what we're talking about, rather than a large map like this that shows wetlands and, you know, habitat corridors and stuff like that. People may want to talk about Lyme's disease and, you know, control of that. We've had some issue about that. And other things, just other things. So do we want to keep this as natural resources only? Is that what people believe would work the best?
Sounds like it, yes.
I guess so.
I think that's
Okay.
what we were headed to. And
Okay.
then, so not so much generalized, so streams. So make this much more specific then, in terms of these examples.
Right, examples like, yeah, I would guess natural resources and, yeah, I guess. So why don't we move on to the next section and see what that is? And we'll move the historic to put it with Campbellsville, and we'll retool that when we get there.
Okay. So then the next section would be looking at that land use map that I showed you. So you have land uses, and this would be future land uses. You have agriculture as an industry and preserving that as an industry. Housing, what kind of housing diversity do you want? What kind of density do you want? And what type of affordability, if possible, do you want, as well as housing conditions? And even physically, where should new houses be located in the township? Should one of those larger, for example, agricultural parcels be sold? Because it's most likely that would be turned into housing. And then also general community character. And this also gets into your historic resources as well as your agricultural landscape, because you still have a lot of open lands, you still have a lot of historic buildings, you still have a lot of scenic views, and you don't particularly have, you know, higher density in the township. So you have a lot of, I'm going to say, rural community character resources. So how do you feel about keeping that character?
Biotic resource map. I'm lost as to where we're at.
Yeah. So you change the map to the land use, it's still the natural resources.
Okay. I can't see what I'm sharing exactly,
Yeah.
so. You can all see the exercise, the packet though, right?
No,
No, I can just see what this, I only see the map.
it's only your shared screen that can be seen.
Okay. Why have it? I mean, it's saying you're sharing your screen right now.
All I have is the existing land use map that I can
You're
see.
sharing the PDF screen. You're not sharing your monitor screen. There's a difference. So you're sharing the PDF application, not the entire screen that's your desktop. And IT can probably step in at this point. Help.
Can you see it now?
I see it now.
Can you also see the existing
Yeah.
land use map?
Yes.
Thank you. That's much better. Now you have the ability to partition and everything. Great. Thank you. That's great.
All right. Yes, that's better. Thank you.
That
Okay.
helps.
So now you can read what I just told you, which was the land use, the ag as an industry, and housing and community character, and talk about looking at what your existing land use is, which is here, and you can see a lot of still open sorts of lands, whether they're preserved open space or parks or agricultural that's open. And you see in these yellow areas, you have housing interspersed between these more open, areas in the township. So in looking at this existing land use map, what are you looking for the future of the township to, be? What you have now? Are you looking for more development? If you're looking for more development or redevelopment, what type of development would you be looking for? Any of these types of development? Are you looking to keep agriculture as an industry? And if you are, then you should talk about the importance of ag as an industry. Basically,
I have a suggestion. So I see the map and I see all the land uses, but I guess the question that we're asking of the land that could be developed, which I'm not sure where they are. Maybe instead of this, we want to do a map of the land that still could be developed and ask that question.
well, remember I pointed out at the beginning, there's very little land that's vacant, but technically a lot of this ag land, could be
We have-
developed, and anything could be redeveloped. Anything in the village could technically be redeveloped.
But I think we're talking about large scale development. I mean, would be one of the questions, and the parcels that are in the olive green without the crosshatch, some of those cannot be developed because they're preserved. So, I don't know how others feel, but this map doesn't do much for me because I don't know. I know the two parcels that you have there. I don't know why those are chosen as something that could be developed when there are other lands that are in agriculture that aren't preserved that could be developed.
Well,
But
these are both vacant. That's why
They're not being used for agriculture.
they're not being used for agriculture, right? They're vacant. Agriculture is considered a land use. So
farming.
it's not considered.
I get that, but if we're going to talk about housing, farmers can either grow houses or they can grow crops. I mean,
Right.
that's, but this map doesn't reflect that.
Well, I think too, Nan, the whole point is for people to not pinpoint necessarily one parcel or saying this parcel right here is not preserved. I'm just saying, let's say this parcel isn't preserved. So what would we like to have for specifically on that parcel? I think it's more of a general concept saying there's parcels in the township that aren't preserved. They could be developed. If they were developed, what in general terms, what would you want to have happen to them? Because this whole exercise is only going to be 40 minutes. So we can't have people looking at like parcel by parcel. We could certainly create that kind of a map, but
I think we're getting stuck on like these guys. It's like a zoning meeting. It's not really that. It's really high level concepts, right?
Yeah.
Rather than this parcel, that parcel, this type of land. It's very high level.
right. We're looking at very high level community character in general. Are you happy with your current community character, basically? And if you are, then that would be something you would say here. You would say, love rural character.
That left-hand side of your screen should kind of never disappear. It should be always the focus. And that helps me as a township member see what we're talking about, like, especially when you focus on 2 or 3 topics there.
Right. Because there's also, I guess I don't get a sense generally of if people, and I guess I'll speak to this group, even though this group is probably very special, a very specific kind of resident, is aware of the amount of preserved land we do have and how much agriculture we do have. So I think it is worthwhile to have everybody have that access to that map.
So are you saying that we should have the preserved one and then so we know what's not preserved? Is this kind of what I was saying? I'm confused, sorry.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. I think I'm just saying, because I'm just like I was just fumbling with my words, but saying, agreeing with Barry.
How
Well,
about,
the question is, we could only have, because it's a Zoom meeting, remember, it's not like we're sitting at a table where we can spread out 10 different maps and our screens are only so large. So we're gonna have to be very selective on what maps we have up on the screen because,
You can cycle through these tabs, right? Are you gonna not have the same book? Or are you gonna have a different thing?
well, we can cycle through the tabs, but you were saying that it's important to keep, the words on the screen, basically. So having the words on the screen means we can only have one map up at a time?
Yeah, that's the concept, I think. Is that if you're talking about ag, you have the ag map up. If you're talking about historic, you have the historic map up. I think that's what we're saying.
Well, I did have the existing land use map up before, which did show the ag. So for example, this map, which is preserved lands, doesn't actually show the ag. It shows lands that are preserved, but it doesn't show the ag. So what I'm trying to say is, do you want the existing land use map up that shows the ag, or do you want the preserved land?
Doesn't it change per topic? Or are we talking about all this stuff at the same time? I guess that's where I'm confused.
Well, for this topic, we're talking about all of these items right now. We're talking about land use, we're talking about ag and industry, housing, community character.
so Jeannie, I'd like to see the opposite. I would like to see a map of the developable parcels.
Yes.
Because showing the opposite, showing, hey, look all we've preserved, that's not getting to the point. The point is, we still have 75% of the land can be developed. And you make the point that, yes, you can redevelop. So even though we have single family homes somewhere, somebody could knock that down and build a more dense townhomes. But at least let's start off with a map that shows the open fields, whether it's farmable or not, just open fields that could have houses on them someday. And so this map is too congested, too busy.
Right.
I would just want, I know this map very well, but I just want one that has two colors, developable, hasn't been developed at all, and already developed. That's the two colors.
So we'll pull the map that you guys did for your fair share analysis then, because you did something called a developable lands map, where you showed everything that was constrained versus everything that was developed.
And then, because then you put that map up and you say, hey, what do we want to do with this remaining land that has yet to be developed? Do we want to try to keep it rural, or do you guys want to build out? That's the question, right? Isn't that what we're asking?
Well, that's one of the questions we're asking. We're also asking, that's just one of the items. We're also asking these other questions. You have a bunch of agricultural land in your community. And for example, as Dave was talking about the last meeting, if there's agricultural farmer, et cetera, sitting in that breakout group, they could say, well, if you want to keep us as an industry, we're having problems with the roads and we're having problems getting our equipment in the roads. So how do you keep this as a industry? It's not just about land development and redevelopment.
No, but as Dave said, as we go through the questions, we offer a different map. So for the second question, ag as an industry, we show a map that just has these are the ag parcels. And the second one, or the third question, housing density, that's the one I would show just what's developable. And
They're not really different questions though. It's really, we're trying to look at basically land use is what we're looking at.
Right.
But we could delete all of this and just say land use if this is too complicated for, for everybody.
I think that's better. I think just leave it as land use. And though I'm looking at the map from the fair share poll, I think it's exactly, I can put it up to the camera. It's exactly what you want. It's got, the pink is developable. It's got gray, which is developed. It's got green, which is protected. And then it's got a blue one, which is natural resource constraints.
We hear a lot of comments from some certain people in the township that say, we've preserved enough, we're done. And I want to show that there's still a lot that can be yet can be built.
Can you hold it up, Nan, so everybody can see it?
Sure, I can.
Thanks.
It also has the zoning districts. I think it's exactly what we want. Can you be able to see it? Can you kind of see it?
Yeah. We can see it, the pink, the green. I assume the gray is what's been developed. The green is what's been preserved?
Yeah, pink is developable.
Okay.
Gray is developed, the green is protected, and there's blue, which actually shows your biodiversity, that they have the blue, which is got the restraints like floodplains. and stuff.
Constraints, yeah. It has all the constraints together probably.
Yeah.
It's probably floodplain,
And-
streams, wetlands.
Can you see also that it has the zoning districts? If you look closely, there's the zoning districts are typed in there. I think that this is the map that you want, Paul.
Yeah, I think that's a little easier. It's not as informative as the map you were sharing before, but I think for this quick hit, just a simplified map would be helpful.
So do you want to show the existing land use map at all, or is it just too much?
I think you should have it handy. I'm not so sure that we need to show it.
Yeah. Good.
I think you're gonna have to be, you're gonna have to do it on the fly a little bit and make sure you have the maps as
Right.
questions come up.
Yeah,
I
and
think this map is the best one for the conversation called land use.
here's a comment too, is a lot of people haven't really seen or studied a map of the township. I know that sounds
Right.
silly, but when I put up a map, the first thing they do is like, where am I? Where's my house?
Where's 896?
Where's 896?
Right, that's true.
Yeah, so make sure that 896 and 841 are shown there so people can find their houses.
Right. Well, is this information then helpful to you guys, any of this? Like here, we started to do examples where future township character, ag with increased ag-related business, rural with some development. Like these are the high level concepts we want them to look at. Suburban with more development of facilities. What are they looking at for the future land use and the future character of the township?
I'm
I
not
think
sure
there's-
that ag as an industry fits in there. I think the other bullet points are, I think ag as an industry is under township future character overall. Does that make sense to people?
It does. The only reason I pointed that out is because I think everybody sometimes, people forget ag as an industry. Sometimes people think it's just pretty lands and preserved open space, and it isn't.
I think it needs
comes
to,
with
Janine's got a good point. I think it needs,
positive and a negative.
yeah, it needs to stay in for the reason that most of us don't understand it as an industry that's, makes money. Got to look at it from that perspective. The only other comment that I would make, Janine, is the more words that we put on this screen, the less words that we're able to receive from the people that we're talking to. So I'm definitely in favor of keeping it as simple as possible. Land use, that's fine. That's like, okay, you guys tell me what your opinion is. And so the less sentences and the less bullets that we can have, and you've got a good job on condensing it, but even shorter.
Okay.
Helps people say, okay, I'm going to focus on this and add my perspective, because it's going to trigger their ideas, and I'm more interested in their ideas than I am my own.
Now I have a question, Barry. How does that mesh with when we talked about the environment? You were saying that we needed to add more specific examples. So here we have a lot of specific examples, but it sounds like this is probably too many specific examples here. And there wasn't enough in the environment. Is that what you're saying?
Janine, you make a very good point that many times historical versus land use versus environmental are overlapping on a Venn diagram.
Right.
No question about that. And I guess it's our job during this, I view it as our job during this meeting to separate them out as much as possible to sort of get an idea. Yeah, so thanks for the background music. And so, yeah, so for as far as the environmental use, I would keep that separate.
Right, I know, I understand that. I was just saying the comment you made when we were talking about the environmental stuff was we needed more specific examples because the topic was too general. Like here, I just say natural resources and then have, more general topics. And you said add some specific examples. And then here, it seems like maybe I have too many specific examples. So I'm trying to figure out when is enough specific examples versus when is, too generalized. And I don't think,
yeah, so
I don't think I've struck that here.
Somebody made the comment on the previous one, the previous page you just flipped back to, which was the historic. That, yeah, we could probably break out historic resources in terms what more often people think of in terms of historic buildings and structures and sites.
Right.
And the environment, I think, though it is obviously our greatest long-lasting historic resource, can probably be viewed separately at this point,
Right.
given the green movement and everything like that. And I do think it deserves its own topic.
Right.
People are going to be interested in that the most. And that way we can fairly evaluate, okay, Kemblesville as a village is a historic resource as we understand it as developed lands. But then the environmental movement is something different. It deserves its own separate topic at this point.
I get that. I get what I'm trying to ask is, forget this is all gone right now. Like, let's disappear. Let's make this all, we'll make this all disappear for a second. So the question I have, so let's just get rid of that there. So the question I had is, when we're under natural resources, you were saying that these topics were too general, or these items were too general, and we should add some more specifics like lanternflies, Lyme disease, that sort of thing.
So
But then
yeah, I
on the
think that,
next topic, we were saying that there were too many examples of too many specific items. So I'm trying to get a litmus test of when are the items too generalized and when are the items too specific? Because here they're general, but the feedback I got was they're too general. And here they're specific, and the feedback I got is they're too specific. So I'm left at a loss on, you know, which way you want to go, general or specific, and how specific.
okay, so let me take it down a couple of notches. And
Okay.
just on the previous screen with respect to your environmental and your example, and I think also, oh goodness, what was it, Jerry, that mentioned the lanternflies and the trees of heaven. These are specific examples that are good and that I think should be included. Mixing them with what people understand as historic resources was a bit of a jump. And the village is a great comment. And I think that's right, because so this, like, an example of the environment should also be, okay, there's this state preserve land area as well. So this is perfect for me. It's very thematic. It's specific examples of both invasive species and specific land areas that people can identify with. So I'm good. I'm great with this.
Okay, good.
On the next one,
It's a for stormwater management. So then we move to the next one, and we have a lot of very specific examples. So we're talking about land development and redevelopment.
yeah. So on here, I'm looking at this now. I've got the 4 bullets, and it's just from my screen. And again, we're Zoom limited, right? You know, and that's a big aspect of it. It's sort of hard for me from Zoom as a standard like township member to say, okay, agriculture is an industry. I kind of get that. But I don't have time to read all these words in this fine print because literally it's only a few pixels on my screen.
So Barry, I think what she was saying was on the other slide, you wanted more words, and on this slide, you want fewer words. And she's
Yes.
perplexed. Where the balance?
I think the specific example request is not unreasonable, but just because it connects to the person in the meeting. And so here, the same thing would probably hold if she's asking for, if Janine, if you're asking for a common theme, it would be specific examples that apply to the person in the room that they can connect to. That's what I'm talking about. That's the most valuable for them so that we can get what their opinion is. So anyway, so does that help a little bit? I'm sorry.
So maybe, Janine, maybe his comment is that these topics are a little more, you can grasp them easier with fewer examples. And the other topics like historic resources are a little more difficult to grasp and we need examples.
Jerry, thank you for raising your hand.
Yeah, I think one of the problems that I have with this is where I would start with the last bullet point. What do people think about the future character of the township? And I don't have the same problems as Barry does with the examples. I think they're good. And with regard to agriculture, not as a significant, isn't agriculture is a significant business in the township, is that right?
Yeah, I eliminated the other words, so it got funky.
Yeah.
You know, because I had all those other words.
And then people could decide whether they want to retain it, whether, you know, they want to change it somehow. But I think to me, it seems like the real emphasis should be, what's the future character of our township that we want? Do we want to retain the rurality of the township? Do we want more development so that people will have that as a stepping off point?
Okay, so we could just say like housing density types,
Yeah,
affordability and location, and just make it easier.
Give them a step off point with a couple of examples, and then let's hear what they have to say. Yeah.
So we'll make it more like that, a little bit more simplified then. That's pretty simple at this point. Housing densities, land development or redevelopment.
So
Online, you can't make it simple enough. I do online construction. It's horrible. You've got to keep it so much simpler than real life. Terrible.
how about just the use of bold and font? Just put the first few letters or words, township future character overall in bold, and then take the bold off the rest of that paragraph. Like, why is that all bolded?
Well, remember too, we're gonna, like, this isn't something, I mean, people will be looking at it on the screen, but in theory, we'll be having a discussion right now. So they're not gonna be as focused probably on all these words.
Right, but I'm trying to convey to the reader that the most important thing on the first burger dot or the bullet point is township future character overall.
I'm not sure they're reading anything. I think the facilitators are reading something, right? Isn't the facilitator saying, okay, now we're going to talk about land use
No,
and
they're going to
or-
share this, right?
They'll be sharing, you know, they could be sharing their screen in theory to show them this, but it's going to be more of a discussion.
right. That's my point.
They're not going to be reading it like a book.
Right. That's my point is no, we're not going to say, okay, now take 5 minutes and read this and then we'll talk about it. The facilitator says, all right, guys, today right now we're going to talk about land use. And so these are the kinds of things that we talk about with land use, and we're going to have this conversation, right?
So, but Dave, this is PowerPoint 101. If you throw a slide up with a whole bunch of words on it, nobody hears anything you say. They're trying to read the slide.
No, I understand. Well, I understand that. I do understand that.
Right. I agree with Paul that I think we should bold some of what we want them to see, and then they can read the other stuff if they want to.
If they want. So
Yeah.
add the word township, please. Add township future character. That's the first point. And the second point is land development, redevelopment. I don't know. You might have to condense that. That's a long sentence.
Well, they're not going to know what that means if we don't give examples.
Yeah. Oh, no, you leave the examples. I'm just trying
Right.
to get the highlight.
And the third one's agriculture.
Agriculture. Yeah. And the last one's housing density.
Right. Yep, I agree with that.
So it isn't really just housing density. We're just bold housing. It's really everything.
Okay. All right. Good.
Yeah, I agree with that. Do we want to go back to the first one and see if we can retool it to match something like this? Break
I
that.
can do that for you guys. I don't think we need to go through that. I think we should, because it's 7:40 almost. So I think we should get through we have 3 more topics to get through.
Ooh, when is dinner served?
Whenever you buy it for me.
Much better. This looks great. I like the bold idea as well. It keeps people focused because they will read it.
And remember, they're going to have 40 minutes for this entire exercise. So they're literally going to be on this topic for all of maybe 5 minutes. So it's going to be somebody saying to them, do you like the character of your township? Yes. What do you like about the character of your township? Point, 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 point. What would you like to have happen going forward in the future in your township to change some of the land uses? Oh, we want a Walmart. We want a shoe repair shop. We want Kimballsville to be have more commercial uses. Point, point, point here. And then, you know, what really is horrible about your community character? And, you know, somebody saying that, you know, we really don't like the fact that we have this type of use in the township, and
Okay.
going forward, we would like to have less of that type of use. So it's
Let's move on to the next one. I think we get it, so we can get through the rest of the slides.
so then we have ag and open space land preservation, and this is where we're actually talking about the physical preservation of lands, not the business, any of that business, not the business aspects.
So what's the question here? You want to retain or you want to not do it? Is that the question?
Well, the question is, how do you feel about agricultural and open space land preservation? Is this a good feature? Is there too much open space preserved? Do you want the whole township developed?
Right.
Do you want more land preserved? If it's a good feature, then you say, I like the fact that agricultural land and open space has been preserved, and we would like the township to stay that way.
I'm just
That's a good
pointing
feature.
out that it's usually more or less, but the questions are retain and enhance. So they almost seem like the same question.
Well, enhance, remember at the beginning, they're good features, but they could be better.
Okay.
So we like our ag, but not enough is preserved.
Where do they say that? Yeah, where do they say we want more preservation?
They could say it under enhanced or improved.
Okay.
We were trying to keep this as simple as possible and not have different questions for different topics, because then
Yep.
people start getting into the wording of each question. If they're the same questions for every topic, people hopefully won't. So maybe we need to get rid of the enhance. Maybe that's confusing. Maybe we just say, what do you like about the township here? Like, it's not even retain. Like, what do you like? And what do you want to improve? If we're going to make it super simple and
Yeah,
not have this iteration, because this is more of an iteration of improved. Maybe that's a stumbling block for you all.
The adversarial point would be not to enhance or improve, but actually to convert or remove, destroy.
Well, that's where we have transform.
Yeah, okay. It's a nice word for remove.
Right. So basically, that's why we have these iterations, because you have transform where you're basically just changing something outright. You have something where you're enhancing it to make it a little better, and you have something that you love and you want to keep it that way. But I don't know if that's too many, iterations.
Maybe put it up at the front, at your first questions, because yeah, instead of preservation, you could say preservation or conversion, or preservation or conversion or transform, however. But maybe that needs to be right up front, as was mentioned, just so we could have the two opposite views thrown out there for people to comment on right away, true, false sort of situation.
So preservation or
Development.
it would have to be or development. Or we just get rid of these words altogether and just say we're talking about agricultural and open space land.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, this topic is really getting at, how do you feel about this land that's been preserved? Do you want more land to be preserved in the future?
Those are two topics. I mean, one is if it's already preserved, it's preserved. But if we're talking about land that could be preserved.
Yeah.
Right.
And then my only comment would be on the 2 bullet points, rather than starting both of them with preserved. I'd like it to start with agriculture or open space so people can see, so it kind of pops out at them. I think it's good. I think we should have the conversation. Do you want to preserve the land that's not protected, or do you want to develop it? It's kind of back to land use, but it's the concept of preserving land or not. So that's the conversation that people are going to want to have.
So do we want to keep this enhance and transform, or is that too confusing to people here?
You're just trying to get them to speak on whether they want to do it or not. I don't care what the questions state. It's
okay.
Right. You're going to type in, people are going to be shouting, Develop more, no more taxes.
No more taxes, develop more. We love our,
We love our school taxes to go up. Develop more.
Right.
Okay.
I mean, we could get rid of this whole retain thing and we could just say something like, what do you like about agricultural preservation or open space preservation, and what don't you like about it? And what can the township do about it?
Well, it's a hot topic. I think it will come out. I don't know whether you need to really have retain, enhance, or improve, or whatever the third one is. I think the bullet points are just, they're just going to fire out. I mean, the bullet points, you're going to have the people in the camp that like preservation and people in the camp that don't.
Right.
And so you're just going to end up with, 10 or 12 bullet points on both sides of the question.
Right.
I don't know. Does everybody agree that we should just not have the retain and just have the bullet points, or do you want to? I don't know.
You can
We have
leave.
to have questions of some variety, but it's like, do you like? I mean, we could make it.
Can it be more open-ended? Just say, well, how do you feel about this thing? Rather than say,
Right.
give them 3 options.
Right. Just
Yeah,
let
we
it
can do
fire out.
that.
Just let it fire out.
It's trying to lead them through a conversation, though. So you guys can get to your subjects for your comp plan, and try to lead them to what the subjects that they think are important are. So we do have to have some kind of structure and questions.
Yeah, no, that's a good idea. The retain, enhance, or develop is kind of 3 options, right? Status quo, extend, or diminish.
Yeah,
So
or transform,
that's good.
whatever you want to call it, transform. Okay, so the 4th topic then, we'll talk about different types of infrastructure. So in the township, because you don't really have sewer, water, public sewer and water, basically what you have are the roads, the parks, the trails, and then just a general category of other types of, infrastructure. So here we talk about township roads, we have maintenance, etc. We talked about the idea we came up with the last meeting, which is what about multi-use lanes on the roadsides? And that lanes could serve several different purposes, which we talked about at the last meeting. You have your parks and your recreation. You have parks for active recreation, sports fields. You have parks for you have preserves for passive recreation, for hunting and fishing, hiking, maybe nature education. Then you have, are you interested in pedestrian walkways? Or are you interested in multi-use trails going forward in the future to connect areas? And then you have all your emergency services, which are generally outside of the township. So the question is, what are good features about all of these? And what should stay? For example, do you like the state police, or do you want your own police force? So a good feature somebody could list is, we like the state police and we want the state police to stay. A feature could be like, the state police aren't helping us, so we need our own police force. Item could be, there's not enough pedestrian connections in the township, so we need to have more pedestrian connections between places. So that's something you could enhance or improve.
I think we understand this one. You don't need to. Anybody have any questions on this one?
Yeah, I'd suggest an addition that we look at internet and mobile services. With the way COVID has been, so many people are working from home that is there a way to enhance those services?
You make a great example. Like this seems weird, but I have no internet in my home and I have not been able to get it because it's a new home that was built, what is it now, 4 years ago? And so you make a very good point that going forward, this has to be something that deserves attention, like this connectivity. I'm doing it through my hotspot on my phone. That time.
If I could comment, Zoom crashed yesterday. Zoom,
Right.
not my house, the whole Zoom crashed. And they think it has something to do with the first day of school. The problem I think we have with this issue, I think we have to address it. We are at the mercy of Verizon and Comcast. And we all know how wonderful they have been to deal with. Yeah, it's a huge issue, and I want to make another point. Please don't even mention police force. I don't want that question to even come up. We do not want a police force. I mean, we can't even put that question out there. So expensive, so expensive. So yeah, but I think that is something we should try and deal with. It's going to be very difficult because we're dealing with Comcast and Verizon. And we all know we can't get Verizon for our TV. The cable ran across my front yard years and years and years ago. They will not give us the service because whatever business decision they made. But yeah, it's communication is difficult. It has to improve.
Yeah, for rural areas, Mary is correct. This is always going to battle, and it doesn't matter if you're in Wisconsin or here in Pennsylvania. Rural areas are always neglected by these big companies.
Well, we talked about this actually we were talking about the survey questions, and I had added a question about internet and mobile service to the survey, and you all told me to remove that question. So it's surprising to me to hear that we're going to, talk about it now. I had a rather lengthy question about all different aspects of mobile and internet services.
Well, that's what happens when you get experience, Janine.
Yeah, but I don't know what we can do about it. It's a private, and we're not going to get in the business of offering internet, running cables. It's a private commodity in our capital world, right?
Well, London, Britain has had this problem, as you guys know, for years, and they've actually been working with, I don't know if it's Comcast or Verizon, I'm not sure, but they've been working with them, and there's programs, one or the other, or maybe both offer, where if a municipality gets enough property owners interested, then basically they can lump them together into some kind of almost like a service area grouping, and they can start to address individual areas through the service area grouping situation. And just the fact that municipalities reaching out and trying to work with these big companies, because obviously individuals aren't going to have, as much pull as a municipality.
Yeah, I don't know whether we can solve the issue, but
Probably can't, but
I think we need to address it.
yeah. So since everybody understands this topic really well, when I started to try to explain it, people said, no, we understand it. How about we actually run through this topic and get your opinions? So out of all these things that are mentioned here, all the types of infrastructure, what works well in the township? And what would you like to keep the same? So it sounds like state police is one of the things you want to keep the same. Mary's comment. So that would be an example of something you want to keep the same. It sounds like something that doesn't work well, that needs to be enhanced and improved, are internet and mobile services. So this is an example of how this exercise would work in play. And then how to improve it. Township communicate with carriers to figure out strategies. So that's an example of how, from what I'm hearing in your conversation. So township road maintenance, how do you guys like the idea of multi-use lanes on the roadsides? Is that a good idea for the township to consider for all of these different types of uses? It wouldn't be every road, but there might be some roads where that's, that could happen. Particularly larger roads.
I'm for that. It's very expensive and it could be difficult to do, but if I could wish for something for Christmas, that would be my wish.
So we'll write that here in multi-use lanes. And how do you all feel about your current state of your parks and your recreational activities? Are they good? Do you need dog parks? Do you need tot lots? Do you need athletic fields? No to all of that? Do you need more hunting and fishing areas? Are your nature preserves functioning as they should be functioning, or are there improvements? Would you like to have a trail network that connects all of your nature preserves and all your open spaces together?
Yeah, trails connecting would be my wish list.
And I can tell you, Janine, we are currently investigating adding a dog park to Crowson Park. We've just formed a new park, rec, and open space committee, and we have an absolutely wonderful chairperson And he's already gotten bids on dog parks, and there's a lot of dogs in our township, but we think it would be, our residents would really like it. So we're looking into that. A dog park would be a big deal.
So we'll put that under retaining because that's something you're already doing. So we're
Right.
saying keep
No, but we
investigating
don't-
the dog park.
We're not doing it yet.
Yeah, we
Not-
don't have it.
Okay.
We don't
Not-
have it.
not yet.
Investigating covers it. Keep investigating the
Yeah.
dog park.
So since we're pretending to be township members, I would say there's
We're
no,
township members.
I know, and pretending, but at the same time. So I would say the trail map to people who aren't necessarily really embedded within the township, it's not clear. There's no trailhead, like, oh, let's go take the afternoon with the family and the dog and go on such and such trail, like Clay Creek. That's not part of Franklin, but it could be. And that would bring more people into our community and enhance its value, I think. To people.
Yep.
Barry, if I could comment on, I think what you just said is invaluable. And we are starting to work on that. Nan and I have had a discussion about this. There are a lot of other issues with the new board that we're trying to work through. So that kind of got pushed back a little bit, except we do have our new pro committee. We also have bike trails being built in Crowson Park for free. So that is a huge issue for the new board to work on. And I do believe it's going to happen. But yeah, that's something we're truly working on.
That's terrific, because outside people who want to come in, bring their family, spend a little money,
Yes.
their car, spend the day here, that would be terrific.
I just talked to our chair, Nancy Morris, today, and she said, Mary, we need to be a destination. I said, I love it. And that's what we want to be. We have wineries. We're going to have biking trails, walking trails, horse trails. We're going to be a destination. So that's what we're working on, Barry.
Okay, anything else for your pedestrian circulation? How are the fire and ambulance doing? Any items there? Anything about the township road maintenance that should be addressed? Any places where stop signs should be added, speed humps should be considered? Any other considerations? And remember, we're looking at this for,
Janine, the roads are an enormous issue. One, because they're extremely expensive, and two, because of the economic conditions and a big question mark how we're going forward with economic conditions. And it's not looking good for federal, state giving us money. We're going to do the best we can on taking care of our roads, but it's an issue we talk about probably every darn week. It's that big a deal because roads are extremely expensive.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we're working on it, but it's a difficult issue.
As I was a supervisor many years ago, I will tell you it never changed. Everybody always isn't happy about the roads. So in this section for people that are running the rooms, just try to move people on. I mean, I don't want to ignore them. I'm not saying that at all. But some of the other ones might need some attention because everybody has a road that they hate. They're either too wide or they're too narrow or, that sort of thing.
We could just leave it at this. We could talk about the rural road character. For example, keep the rural winding roads. I mean, we could do something like that because
that's in the existing comp plan, that we should strive to keep the rural nature of the township, and that includes the windy roads, that leveling them, straightening them, and widening them ruins the rural nature.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
It's in the current plan I read, and I thought that was interesting, and the view sheds, of course.
And that's why this would have to be balanced with this, the multi-use lanes. You'd have to do the multi-use lanes carefully without widening or straightening the roads, because the minute you do that, the character changes immensely.
Yeah.
So now you're getting the feel for how this exercise would work,
Yeah, this is a good section. I like this. Yeah.
Well, there'll be more yelling.
There's always yelling. So let's just move on to the last topic. And that is Kimblesville's Village as a destination. And we were going to add and historic resources. So when we're talking about Kimballsville Village as a destination, we're talking about what businesses, I think we should say businesses. Businesses you would patronize. We're talking about preservation and adaptive reuse of historic buildings and the modern viable uses. And how would we make the village more of a destination? For example, this idea of making it a trailhead, bike shops, outdoor equipment, etc., came up.
I might suggest that the topic just be Campbellsville Village, not, and take out as a destination, because you address that in the bullet, and historical resources, take that out because you address that in the bullet points.
We have to have some place where we talk about historic resources in general. So I would like to do historic resources.
Can you
in
make a
general.
bullet point? You want to make it a bullet point?
Well, it's not, as we talked about before, it's not just Kimballsville Village. People need to understand, and this is part of the municipality's planning code also, talking about historic resources municipality-wide. So I just want to make sure people understand that,
All right, fair point.
yeah, that it's more expansive. So I think we can include it here, but we just need to make sure people understand that it's more than just a couple buildings in Kimballsville. So what are good features about Kimballsville
Could you
that you would
say,
like to keep?
could you say Campbellsville Village and other historic resources?
Yes, that sounds good. So what are good features about historic resources in general and the village in particular that you would like to keep going forward in the future? Do you want to keep them because they maintain the township's character?
Are we running through this one like an exercise?
Yes. We're going to try.
So keeping the historic appearance of the buildings so that it's, I don't know, a quaint village feel or something like that. But the Harb is doing that already, right? That's their purpose.
Okay. Well, I think it adds character to the township rather than having
Yes.
something that's just all new development. So it's character.
And would you like to expand that character the entire township or just keep that in the village?
In areas, not the total township, but in areas.
What are the other areas?
I think too, Janine, maybe somehow being able to walk the village, whether that be put some sidewalks in, or, I mean, you can't walk the village right now. And I don't even know if that's possible, but maybe we could look into it if it's possible.
Yeah, that's,
Very-
and
that's a
they're
very
not
good-
sidewalks, they're walkways.
Yes, yes.
And make more walkable.
Make it
Mary,
more
that's a
walkable.
very good point, because you can't have this village that's a destination if people can't walk through it. So you can't have sidewalks everywhere, and I get that, but that's definitely needed to enhance or improve the village. You have to be able to walk from store to store, from building to building.
Now, what kind of additional businesses might be needed to turn Kimballsville into more of a village destination?
I would do outdoor stores such like bike shops, hiking would be something that I would say.
Place to have coffee or ice cream, someplace where you're not.
Exactly.
Yeah, specialty food store.
Yeah.
Etsy type shops, something you can't get anywhere else.
Something that's entertaining to go to and fun. It's not necessarily like, going to Super Fresh or something,
Yeah.
whatever it's called
Unique
now.
local businesses.
Yeah.
So I like dreaming about it, but we as supervisors or township supervisors can't force it. How do you?
Well, what you can do is you work on some of the other stuff, right? And so what happens is, you have this logical trail system that's easy to find, and you have a place where people can park to access that logical trail system.
Right.
And then businesses will see, wow, people are coming to Landenberg or Franklin, Campbellsville on a Friday night, and then businesses are attracted to it. So you make it more attractive. You don't necessarily, you can't, obviously we as supervisors can't say, I'm now going to pass a law that means that demands a ice cream place, as much as I'd like to have ice cream.
Right.
Well, the two other things you can do is you could do what other communities have done, and you could do a marketing campaign.
Mhm.
for
Well,
Kimballsville, so
we
you
had
could have a
talked-
special logo.
Yeah, absolutely. Those are all
Kimballsville, so
things
you could
that are-
actually do marketing.
Yeah, and I mean it all fits together into one idea, right? So you have to get the people interested in the assets we do have. Once people start using them, we can build on some of the other assets, and then you start, it all kind of snowballs once it starts to happen, right? So we do have some great local businesses, and we have this trail system where you can bring your horses, and then we got to make all that fit together into one sort of destination plan, and then it expands. So
Yeah.
but you have to be strategic about it, and you have to be active in doing it, right?
I like pretty much everything, David, that you said there. We just have to be strategic about it in terms of setting a good foundation.
Yeah.
And then they'll come and they'll fill out, these businesses will be attracted to that. So,
I love the dreaming, but wait till you guys have your first trail meeting. You get Jay Brown on there yelling, "You ain't putting a trail in front of my house, God damn it."
Yeah.
Well, there's always the naysayer and the
I mean, I haven't been to a meeting where I haven't been yelled at by somebody. So it's just the way the next 6 years of my life are going to go.
Yeah.
Hey, Paul, we're developing a very thick skin.
Good.
I guess Paul's has thinned out since he's been a supervisor.
So another item I was thinking of adding for retaining, not all municipalities have a village or a historic village.
Right.
So you guys are lucky you even have a historic village. So just looking at an even broader scale, stepping it back a bit, that's an asset you all have that is unique, to you.
I think it's time that we discuss it. I mean, Campbellsville's been there for a while and things are changing with people not wanting to go to Walmart and places like that. They might like to have it as a destination and come out on the weekend and be in a rural spot and go for a walk, as we were saying, and have ice cream and buy a bike and that sort of thing.
And then the last item will be in this workshop. So in theory, we've just spent 40 minutes going through all of these items and what we like and what we don't like. And then the last item will be prioritizing the subjects. So what are the top subjects out of all the subjects that the breakout group discussed? What are the top subjects that the plan should be addressing? And when each group reports back to the bigger group, there might be a 30-second discussion on what was talked about in the breakout group, and then the primary report back will be talking about what the most important topics are to discuss in the plan.
You're talking about the topics we all just went through, the individual sheets, right?
The individual sheets and all the ideas you came up with.
Can you put on this sheet, when you say prioritize, can you relist them for people so everybody remembers what they are?
Well, it's not these topics.
Okay, that's what my question was.
It's what you got, your ideas that you came up with.
From the group, right?
Yeah, so based on your discussion and responses on the questions, what do you think are the most important subjects to address? So one would be, for example, that you all came up with walkability in the village as a start to village enhancements. Whoops, good Lord. Okay, I don't know what happened there. Anyway, you get the idea.
Yeah, but since we only have four, I think there are 4 main topics.
Right.
I echo Nan's sentiment, maybe 5, that it could just be listed there to help initiate the discussion there in bold at the very top, just very briefly, like plan, comma, the other, that sort of thing.
Because most people are going to remember what they just discussed and they might forget what they discussed in the first topic. And that might jog their memories.
Okay.
So I might have missed it in the beginning. How do we break? You said there's going to be 4 breakout sessions, right?
There's going to be 4 breakout groups, depending on how many people attend. If people attend, then there's only 1 breakout group.
How do you break up the people and assign them to a group and do all that? How does that work, like technically?
Remember I said that one of our administrative people was going to be manning the Zoom. She has already done this in the Southern Chester County Trail meeting. So I didn't ask her the specifics about how it works from a technological perspective, but she's already done it. So she knows how to break people up into groups.
The user, we advertise one number and the users just join one meeting, and then your technical person will just break us up.
Yes, and the township Zoom that we're on right now has the ability to break us up if we wanted to right now into 3 sub rooms and then this main room.
And should we, as the main group, be strategically placed in each of the groups?
Yeah, we should be divided up in the groups. Yeah.
Because if we're all in one group.
No, we shouldn't be.
Right,
We should be divided up. Yeah.
Yeah, or if like there's one group that has none of us represented, that's not good either. So
Right.
Right.
Yeah. Just Janine, are we going to practice it like Joan, you and I, just before we go live, so to speak, just to make sure it works?
Well, remember the email I sent where I connected you to the woman in our office, Nancy?
Yeah, I haven't had a chance to read it. I'll be honest about that. But yeah, I just want to make sure that we, get divided up. I want to make sure it works before we go live.
Yeah, you guys would meet amongst yourselves. And ideally, if Joan would feel comfortable, you could hand the Zoom controls over to Nancy because she's very experienced with doing this at this point. And you could be there, to help her if you feel comfortable doing that. But just let her run the Zoom.
Sure.
She's done it for town tours and village walks,
Joan's like, heck,
county programs and other programs.
Okay.
What were you saying, Paul?
so Joan's ready to jump on that. I'll give the control to anybody else, anybody who wants it.
So we just have about 15 minutes more if we're finished with this, Janine. And I wonder if Kathy wanted to talk about that one question on the survey. Is that appropriate now?
Yes. Do you want me to try to bring up that question?
Yeah, Kathy, you there?
Yeah, I'm here. That would be great if you could bring that up.
Okay, give me a second. I have to go onto my desktop at work if you want to start talking about it.
So while you're bringing up that, so after we all finish our individual groups, are we all brought back to the main room for a wrap up or what happens at the end? Or just thank you for your time?
That can happen, Paul, but my experience
This is
is
what's happening.
bringing people back from the breakout rooms is problematic. So
Yeah,
probably
'cause they're finishing at different times, right, Barry?
breakout
Yeah,
room.
that's true.
Way to go.
Well, if you look at the schedule here, the meetings, it's not very long. We start the workshop at 6:30. Nan and I spend all of 20 minutes going through the introduction. We're investigating if we can technologically have this attendee poll. I don't know if we can yet. So we talk for 20 minutes, then we go into these breakout groups and they're all of 40 minutes. Then we come back for a half an hour and each planner who's in the breakout groups will be the person reporting back. So they're going to report back to everybody that returns. And then we're going to spend a little bit of time just saying what the next steps are. And the next step would be fill in your community survey. There's going to be another community meeting coming up. Keep looking at the township website for more information. And then if you have any questions, we'll field questions and then we'll be done.
I would guess after the breakout groups are done, I think we'll probably lose a lot of people. They're going to, go and have their dinner or something, whatever.
So do you think we shouldn't have a report back then?
I don't know. What do you think, Barry? Because you were
guys think?
saying,
I don't think so. I think the breakout is the best way. People are personalized and they're personally connected to that breakout. And you just finish it on a high note. Getting everybody to reconnect after a breakout is going to end 10, 15 minutes. It's going to add 10 to 15 minutes to your total meeting time because not everybody's going to be synced.
yeah,
That's a high.
I agree.
But
Well, the reason they'll be synced is because at the 40-minute mark, everybody automatically, Nancy and Joan shut down the breakout rooms. They're gone.
But what if somebody's finished after 30 minutes, So we might be prepared to have the wrap up done in the breakup, when the group is finished with their conversations, then the planner does the wrap up there talking about the survey and that sort of thing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, we can do that.
I like having a wrap up with the big group, and if you're right, just shut it off and you bring everybody back. As long as the people in control can do it.
Yeah, I don't want to get into I've had a different experience, but I had a different experience with these kinds of breakout rooms where We've it was a pretty sophisticated, several weeks long course, and every day we had breakout rooms. We'd recombine, have conversations, break out again, recombine. And usually, there is time. There might be a time jump, 2 or 3 minutes where other people are wrapping up. But as Janine points out, they're just going to shut the room off, so everyone comes back. And what you'll find is there's usually isn't that fast of a group. It's usually everybody's running long, and then the room just closes on its own. So, I mean, again, I'm not saying anyone's wrong. I just had a very different experience doing this. So I would just say, let's just see what happens. And if worst comes to worst, we all sign off on our individual rooms, or if the rooms recombine, that works too.
I think we should decide now, though, if we're going to have rooms combined again or not. I think it's too confusing.
Well, I think, personally, I think we should try and recombine them, but have people prepared, if things aren't working out, have your individual leaders prepared to wrap up if the recombination doesn't work out, right? So if you have my kind of experience, we'll close it out and it'll be fine. If you have the kind of experience where people are having issues, we'll be prepared for that too. Right. So the plan would be recombine everybody, have a wrap up. Thank you, everybody. This has been great. Give people an option to say something about their experience, and then thank you, good night. So
if I can add something, just as we've used breakout rooms before. So we brought up 40 minutes versus 20 minutes. And if the main group, because one of the breakout groups will be the main room, if they're still working and other people end early and break into it, that'll interrupt the main group. Just a thought.
Well, the planner will be responsible to tell everybody to wrap it up. Like if we were meeting in person, I would be walking around probably, or Nan would be walking around and saying, you have 10 minutes, you have 5 minutes.
So that's how it worked in my experience. There was some master person who would go from room to room and say, "Hey guys, there's two minutes left. Wrap it up."
And Nancy will probably do that. Our administrative person, or Joan can do that. Our administrative person. But the person who's facilitating will also keep an eye on it and just say 40 minutes is up. We're done. Like we're not. Yes, everybody's coming back into the main room, but that's just it is what it is. So
I think it's going to be problematic, but I think we need to wrap up just so people feel a sense of understanding what the next steps are and what's going to happen.
Yeah,
okay. Let's give it a try. Let's see what happens. We'll just have to be prepared to go with the flow and see what happens.
Yeah.
All right. Can we move on to that question? Do you have it there, Janine?
No, because I was answering your other questions.
Sorry. No, I mean, can you get it?
Yes, I'm going to get it right now. Give me 1 second and start talking amongst yourselves. Don't wait for me because I'm going to bring it up right now.
Yeah, so I can help. Can you guys hear me? I had to put on my headphones.
Yes.
I hear you.
Great. Yeah, thanks. So in the survey for question 5, I had a general comment, and it's the one just to help us remember what that is, because none of you have committed to memory, and I'm going to struggle to remember key parts of it. But it's the one about, do you rank the township support for certain measures? And it's do we support natural resources or historic, a lot of the same things that we've been talking about, over the last 2 hours. But I was struggling with that question for myself because there are some of the categories where the township has zero budget against it. And I thought that the question needed to have some anchoring to it to let I guess maybe a starting question that says something like, the financial support that goes against these measures, if people even understand how much is being spent against some of these measures, should we be anchoring them to those costs so that they can then rank the support that the township gives to these measures? So the question's on the screen now. Yeah.
So I can also fill in. I went to the treasurer's report and tried to put the percentage that would be for each one of these for this year's budget. So open space is 0. Agricultural land is 2%. Natural resources preservation is 0. Scenic is 0. Historic is 0.1%. And maintenance of open space, parks and preserves is 3%. And stormwater is 30%. We had discussed that stormwater, so maintenance is 3%. And 30% is stormwater. The one above it is 3%. So I guess the question is that the question really changes because it does illustrate that with the preservation is not being supported right now.
So Nan, where's the loan? Is the loan in the ag land?
Well, we discussed that last time, and we know the loan is not mentioned because the loan open space preservation, that was open space that was already preserved. It's not what's in the budget. So the ag land preservation is the one easement that we're paying right now, agricultural easement. There's no open space preservation going on. If we were, to answer your question, Paul, if we did include the loan, it would be 9%.
I think you're going to get some pushback if you don't include the loan as a percent of the budget.
Well, I'm saying what we discussed before, so.
Yeah, and I'm not sure that I'm even advocating, breaking it. I love that Nan went and did this because it further confused me about what we want to get out of the community with regard to this question. So, I have to pay a careful attention to the tense in this question to which you would support. So it sounds like a future question, in the future, which one of these, how would I rank these in terms of what I think the township should fund? That is, a more philosophical question versus how I think lots of people would take this question, where I went with right away, because probably I worked on budgets earlier that day in my professional career, was, well, wait a minute, how much are we spending against these things? Because maybe I'm satisfied with, the spend there or dissatisfied. So this question just kind of floats out there without some kind of anchoring.
Well, and Kathy, could I make a comment to you? The last item, stormwater and flooding management. If Joan is still on the line, Joan can fill us in on stormwater. Our hands are tied with stormwater. We could end up spending way more than we want to because we have no choice. We're demanded. So it could change every other item on this list. Joan, could you add a few items about stormwater and how we have to deal with it and how we're restricted? It's huge.
Well, it is something that we're mandated to take care of. And currently our budget is $150,000. And
what do you spend that on? What is stormwater management?
well, it's taking care of any stormwater damage. It's taking care of pipes. If we have to replace a pipe, when we clean out inlets, repair inlets, any stormwater conveyance is
Well, Joan, help me then, because I picked up maybe a wrong number then, because I picked up a number that was 558,735. That was for the budget. I looked at the budget for the year and it said stormwater. What did I pick up that was wrong?
it's not that much.
It's huge, but I don't.
Let me get my book.
That
Okay.
might have included snow plowing.
I don't know. And so I might also mention that I didn't use the total budget. What I used was the general fund, open space, and parkland. I didn't include fire hydrants and emergency services and that sort of thing, unless if we're going to do the percentage, we could do that. It would drop all those percentages down.
Yeah.
And I think the other piece to this is, and I get exactly where Kathy's going, because I do the same thing in my professional life, which is I don't know if I can do more here because I don't know if there's money. The problem is when you're talking about this, I think it's more of, again, a wish list, and it's up to the supervisors and this group to kind of say, okay, well, what is realistic? So if open space preservation is comes out to be the number one thing that we need to work on in Franklin Township, then that helps us prioritize our spending. So that number goes from 0 to something, whether it's 1% or 10% or, you know, 0.5% or whatever it is. Because it doesn't, so I guess where I'm going with this is, once we start talking about hard numbers or percentages of budgets, we need to now talk about context, right? So if 30% of our, that's a bad number, if 2% of our agricultural land preservation or 0.2% of our budget goes to agricultural land preservation, well, is that even a reasonable number? Like, where's the rest of our money going, right? And so even if it's a low number, that may be simply all we can spend. So I'd rather give the person the opportunity to just say, of these lists, let's just say open space is number 1 and natural resource preservation is number 2. Because in the absence of the context of the greater budget considerations, these numbers could look arbitrarily small or big, right? Because we don't have the total budget. I don't
Jerry?
know.
Could we drop?
Jerry has
maybe
a question.
Yeah,
Oh, sorry.
what I was gonna, after hearing the comments, I think we shouldn't focus on funding, but rather say, please indicate the level to which you think the township should emphasize these topics in the future.
I like that. Yeah.
And probably, if we don't have a choice, not include stormwater management.
Stormwater is tricky because I sort of think of it like, well, we can't do anything about it, right? So, you know, a couple of weeks ago we lost power and trees fell across every road in the township. We can't not fix it,
Right.
right? So we're kind of like stuck with stormwater and flood management, you know. So that's just one of those weird. The only piece here, though, is, and I don't think it doesn't belong in this list, but it does belong in maybe like a township maintenance, right? So it gives the township an opportunity to say, you know, you guys are not good after a storm. You know, this tree's been down for whatever. You know, I'm pretty proud of the work we did. I think we did an excellent job, but you know, I think that stormwater and flood management is something that we don't have a control over it. So I think.
And Dave, Dave, I kind of agree with you. We need to take the word stormwater out because we really don't have control of that. And like I said, Joan started to explain it. Our hands are really locked. So yeah, stormwater doesn't belong in this list at all.
I guess, because when I first read it, I was thinking like MSI, right? Like floodplains and that kind of. I wasn't thinking a storm blows through and you have to fix downed, you know, ruined roads and washed out bridges.
No, it's what the state tells us we need to do, and we need to do it. And hopefully we can get solutions that are not that expensive. Yeah, but maybe we can't. So we can't put this in the list.
Yeah, it's kind of like this is things that we can make decisions on, right?
Yes.
What about how I rephrased it? What are the most important conservation subjects for the township to focus on?
That's a good one.
Period.
Yep. And I guess they can always say 0 for all of them, right?
Yep.
Like someone just says, no, I don't think you should do any of it.
Just out of curiosity, what are we spending money on for historic resource preservation? Like what is the township doing at all for historic?
The HARB budget was my understanding.
Oh, that's right. Thank you.
As far as I know, darn little, like $2,000 or less. But Paul Agassi is the man to talk to about that. And the new board is trying to get more focused on that. We have a wonderful resource in Paul. He has extensive knowledge. I don't think we've, used him. That's a bad word, but I don't think we've pulled out of him all that he knows. So hopefully going forward, that's another plus for the township. That's what we're looking forward to.
He said he's on the call and his head is exploding with all the compliments.
So thank you. This is Kathy. This change definitely helps. I think it was the word funding that just opened up a rabbit hole for me.
Yeah.
I also.
So
as a
I like-
shout out to my colleague Barry, we're mixing terms conservation and then we use the word preservation in all of the answers. So I don't know if we want to, if we're deliberately mixing them or if it wouldn't help to be
Take out the
more
word
consistent.
conservation. Just leave it as subjects. What are the most important subjects?
Yeah, and just get rid of that.
So before we move on, I like the change. I understand it was confusing, but I think we are missing one opportunity here is to show just how little we spend on these topics listed here today. That
I think what you could do instead is you could say in parentheses, approximately 5% of the current township budget as of 2020 is spent on these items. And then you're just doing an approximation. So we could just write that in parentheses for reference.
Because we're beaten up pretty bad that our open space loan is swallowing us alive, but it's really not that big of a percentage. So I wanted to, we're missing that opportunity.
But Paul, do you want to keep for the percentage for open space preservation? Do you want to include the loan?
Yeah, that's the fair way, but it has to be a percent of total budget of everything.
Everything, including fire hydrant and
Sure,
everything.
sure, everything. All
Should we
spent money.
include the projected impact on the on school taxes if we didn't have the loan on our township?
Yeah, well,
that's
that's
a good
the
point.
argument.
That's the problem. Is
Pretty
the context
technical.
is we did it for a reason, right? We don't have 1,000 houses now, so we don't have 2,000 more kids in our school system. So if you want to start arguing about money, you're kind of like, well, we actually did a pretty good thing here because our school taxes didn't. We're not asking for us, 2 high schools. We're asking for one bigger one. It's just, well, my problem is that you're falling into a trap of semantics.
But I don't think that's the subject that we're asking about. To try to qualify those different preservation. I think we're just asking where they want their focus to be. I wouldn't make it too technical.
I kind of like this. I kind of like people to know that you guys don't spend that much money on the budget because I think not just in Franklin Township, this is something I see throughout the county.
Yeah, I agree.
People are under the impression that a huge amount of money is spent on these things. And a lot of these efforts, it's really surprising that they are successful with how little money spent on them, relatively speaking.
Well, and I think, Janine, because you have people that are passionate about what they do. We have Paul Lagasse, he's passionate. He comes to every meeting. He doesn't make 4 cents and he's just wonderful. And he has such a little itty bitty budget that I think we do need to let people know how little we spend on all these items you have up here on the screen. And maybe they want to say, you know what? That's a lot more important to me than I thought it was. I didn't realize we were ignoring this because COVID-19 has taught us all a lot.
So could we
how
have
important
Joan,
things are in life.
So could Joan just whip out a percentage of these as a total percent of budget?
Yeah, of the total budget, not what I did.
Right. And I'm going to include
So
the
5%
open space
is
loan.
not the right number, is what you're saying?
No, it's going to go down.
And I should include the open space loan payment, correct?
Yeah. Does everyone agree with that?
Let me ask if the
Yes.
respondents to the survey say they want you to spend more money on one or more of these items. As supervisors, are you going to be able to divert money from other?
No, but the idea is though, yeah, maybe they will, maybe they won't, but the idea is they know what the people want. Now they know we should try to do that or try not to do that.
Right.
Yeah,
But you don't need to put a dollar amount to it to find that out, do you?
No, but
yeah, like so for example, if open space preservation is ranked number 1 on this, however many, 6, 7, however many things
6.
are up there, 6 things, it doesn't mean all of a sudden we refocus the entire budget on open space. It just means that we put this as one of our priorities, right? Because we have competing priorities. So for example, if we wanted to do a huge open space project and we have another tropical storm come through here and it totally blows up one of our roads, we're not doing an open space project that year because we got to fix the roads, right? But it keeps us direct. It gives us direction, right?
So, but I want to answer Barry's question more directly. So Barry, we do not need the percentage or the dollar amount to answer the question. But what I'm saying is it's a good opportunity to share with the people how very little we spend on these topics.
I think the percentage is a very fair input and a logical way to reflect to people what they're actually prioritizing.
Right, right. Here you are prioritizing 4% of the total township budget. Please help us, right? It's not, that's what it comes down to.
That's right. And I've lived several places. Boulder, Colorado is the best example where they prioritized open spaces like this. And I think they've never looked back because it's made it one of the nicest areas in the country to live. And they found ways to do that money. It was with taxes, but okay.
And you know, Barry, to reply to you and to Jerry, we're getting very active in applying for every grant under the sun we can apply for, particularly these smaller things. For example, I just sent an email last night to Greg, our new pro chairman, that the state of Pennsylvania has some money available if you want to do something with your parks. Are we going to get $1? I don't know, but we need to look into those things. I think that's the direction the new board's trying to go in. Get every dollar in grant money we can, and then we can, because we have to spend so much money on roads and not only paving them, cleaning them in the winter, and all that. It's very, very expensive. So there's not a lot of dollars left over to do all these wonderful things we all want to do. We're going to work through grants and yeah, we're going to try and do the absolute best with the money, but some years we're going to say we want a dog park. Guess what? We had to fix XYZ road and we can't have the dog park this year. And that's what the current board is grappling with every single week. And we're trying to do our best and we want all your input because everybody helps us get done what everybody wants to get done. But yeah, so that's just the way it is with money in today's new world.
I think we have our feedback on this. We're going to wait for Joan to give us the percentage, but I think other than that.
So but Joan needs this screenshot right here to know which budgets, because you just changed the question. You took out stormwater.
Right. Well, I can email that to her. I mean, that's not the problem.
I have a copy here. I can just cross out stormwater.
All right. And then you're just going to put the percentage in the top as an information in the paragraph or something, right? You're not breaking it out.
Okay.
Right. I'm just putting here's the question mark.
Yep.
And
I presume it'll be the 2020 budget.
That's the only one I have right now.
Okay.
Mary, I understand what we're waiting here for Joan, and Joan, interrupt me, please. But Mary, I understand your point that humans are expensive and all they do is generate 4.5 pounds of trash a day in general. So even if it's a small amount that we dedicate towards natural resources, I think it'll always return more for the township in the long run versus, that sometimes that investment in humans, which is always very, very expensive. That's terrible to say, but it's just an opinion.
So is everybody happy with the question now? Is there anybody who wants any other changes? We're all good with it? Great, okay.
I'm good.
All right. So I guess do we have anything else that we need to address before we say goodnight?
I don't think so. Next time I will see you all will be at the community workshop.
Yeah.
And I think Nan and I are just going to choose how to divide you all into the breakout groups.
And I've been on vacation a few weeks here, but if you guys send out the advertisements for this meeting and stuff, or
well, I can answer to that. So I'm the people that are doing the newsletter are also going to do the postcard, and it's not being printed yet because the survey is going to go up. They're going to work on it to get it up shortly this week. And once the surveys, there's no problem and the survey's up, I'm going to get the stuff printed and send it out. I understand in Florida, it doesn't take very long to get that done. And I'm using a local guy for the yard signs. I just want to make sure everything's in place, that I feel comfortable before I pay to have anything printed because if there's a date on it, it's a little sensitive if something happens and we have to move that date. My
And
laundry,
Nan, we're looking at about from Florida, where we're getting the website, or not website, the newsletter and everything else for about a 2-week time frame. So
Okay.
let's hope they do what they said they will do.
yeah, yes, it's gonna be in the newsletter as well. So I did
Right.
check that. So if you want, I can send out an informative email. Just started to talk to the folks in Florida. They've given me a price, but about actually printing it. And I'm gonna talk to the guy in Avondale. So I can let you know when the postcards will mail.
Okay.
So
Does that answer your question, Paul?
Sure,
to,
thank you.
can I just have 2 comments quickly? So the goal is to have the community survey will be up and running on Friday. And I'm working with the person in our office who does SurveyMonkey, and she's inputting the last couple questions.
Okay,
And then we're together writing a blurb for the township website. And then also, and I coordinated with Joan on this earlier, and then for the township Facebook about what is a comp plan, very briefly in like 3 sentences, and the community survey in 1 bullet point, and then the community workshop in 1 bullet point.
yeah,
So I
yeah,
just wanted to tell you all, it will be up and running, on Friday.
Right.
So that's good. And
That's terrific.
we
Great.
can, then post everything to the township website. My second question is, the community workshop will basically be in 3 weeks. So when approximately would the signs and all that be posted for the workshop? Obviously, we can start posting the advertisements for the workshop on Friday through Facebook, through the township website. And then also the township had talked about sending emails to the HOAs and anybody on the township email list, and some of the other organizations in the township. How's that all gonna, play out?
right. As I just said, the postcard is already there. They've actually working on it. I just have to give them the okay to print it, okay, and mail it.
Okay.
I wanted to have this meeting and I wanted to make sure that we're gonna work with SurveyMonkey that actually does get on Friday, and then I'll give them the okay to print it and mail it.
Okay.
Yeah.
The yard signs, the turnaround, he's a local guy, he's in Avondale. The turnaround is just a matter of days. So we can have 50 of those signs and it will go up. In regards to the HOAs and that sort of thing, that's kind of up to us, the task force. If you know people who live in neighborhoods who will email it out, you need to contact them and see if they'll email it out.
Well, Nan, send us the email to forward.
Okay, all right, I
And
can.
Janine, like I said, it looks like about 2 weeks we'll have the township newsletter out, which will mention all this. And then October 1 is the date for the new website to launch.
Oh,
Right.
good.
So
What's the date for the website, Mary? I'm sorry.
October 1, it will launch. Later
Okay.
than we wanted, but we're all dealing with things that we didn't think we would deal with. But
Mary,
October 1.
I just want to, now that's a test on October 1. And to
Oh, I
make
thought
sure,
it was the launch.
well, it's a launch that only we will see to make sure
Soft
everything's
launch.
where we want.
Right.
Soft launch.
Uh,
I
yeah.
think once we write the blurbs for the township website,
Yep.
then maybe that should be what Nan emails out to all of you guys to inform your HOAs and your other people, just so we're all saying the same thing.
And as soon as you do that, Janine, it goes on the website. I mean, so if somebody's on the website and says, oh, there's a survey, I'm going to take it, they can do it. So I guess it's going to be kind of approach where we'll just add things as they come. I just want to make sure that everything's cool before
And
I print anything.
How long will the survey remain open?
We were thinking around 6 weeks.
Okay, and does SurveyMonkey limit the number of people who can take a survey?
We're using our paid SurveyMonkey
Oh, paid.
in
okay.
the county. So we have a paid subscription that
Good.
we're using for the project.
Okay.
So I do not believe we do not have a limit on that, because we've used it for other things too.
Yeah, the free one has a limit.
What was that?
The free one has a limit.
Yeah, the free one. No, we don't have a free one. We don't have a free one. And Joan, can you use that email list that you said you had and email people on the list to let them know about the survey and the community workshop?
Yes, we
Is that
can.
cool?
Yes.
Okay.
Do we have a list of all the HOA presidents that we can contact and reach out to?
No, we don't.
Okay, so we need to go work on that.
Yes.
Right, but if people know people that live in developments, like I know people in Brothers Riding, I don't know if they have an email list. There's also Crossin Estates. I know they do. I can reach out to them. So if you have friends that are in those developments, reach out to them and find out if they know the people and see if you can't get it in their hands and get an email out.
Dave, what I've found is very few HOAs have an active organization.
Right.
So,
Well, I can say the newsletter, which should go out very quickly, we will get feedback, any that are not delivered. And we're also asking, like, please tell us how you want us to contact you. We're hoping we're going to get a really good mailing list out of this. So it will help. It won't be perfect, but it will definitely help.
Does
So-
Franklin Township have a next door neighborhood for that, the next door app that you guys could advertise on? Because everybody gets on next door.
Yeah, that's something that we might be able to set up
Oh.
pretty quickly. So we can
We
can
have
see
that.
about that.
Thank you, Janine. Great idea.
Yeah, that's the way to get to a lot of people really quickly.
Next door.
Good
Okay.
idea.
All right.
So is there, in the past experience, have you had problems where people, like if we get it on Facebook and it gets around the community with non-residents taking the survey, trying to skew the numbers?
We really haven't had that much as a problem. I talked to the person who does SurveyMonkey for us to see if there was a way to limit by IP address how many surveys were taken. But the problem is how SurveyMonkey seems to work is if you turn on that feature, then you could only do one survey per IP address. And that's a problem for families who share a computer.
Yeah.
So what we thought what she can do in the background is she can check periodically every so many surveys and see if there's 50 surveys coming from one IP address, then she can, then she'll know that there's something askew going on. So she's just going to check in periodically and see if there's anything that looks odd.
yes, we discussed this long because we don't want the survey to get skewed. So we do have some ability to keep that from happening.
All right.
Right. It'll be more of a manual check because again, it seems to be all or nothing in how it works. And I don't think with everybody being at home now, it's realistic to limit it one survey per one IP address because most people are probably sharing their tablet, whatever.
Okay.
So yes, we did think about how to address that. Now, if people from outside the township take the survey, you're just going to have to rely on their honesty of being a property owner in the township. It's not like we're going to track their location or track their address. There's not much we can do about that without getting really complicated. And most people don't want to fill out a survey if they're going to be tracked. Most people want to be anonymous. So it's sort of if you want a lot more responses, you just have to be more open-ended about that and hope for the best. Because you'll definitely get fewer responses if you start asking for emails or names or, any of that business.
Okay, can we call it a night?
We can.
Okay, everybody, thanks for
Thank you all.
joining.
Good
I think
seeing
we had a
you
good
guys.
meeting and
Great.
we'll
Thank
see you shortly.
See you
Thanks,
soon.
everybody.
Okay, take
Appreciate
care,
it.
guys.
Bye.
Thank you
Bye.
very much. Great meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.